Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we are going to talk about something I have never seen before at the Dungeons and Dragons table. It just happened at my FELGS table on Thursday, and the ramifications will be hitting on Monday, which is like, what? And it's pretty staggering. So I really have never seen anything like this. So this is a field report from my FLGS game. And I wanted to share it with you and then get your thoughts and also see if you've ever seen this situation happen and how you managed it. Really very shocking situation. Okay, so friendly local game shop. I'm running Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition Eberron Obsidian campaign. 5 maybe 6 players, depending on how you count, right? Because we have some people who sit at the table, but not all the time. But solid 5 players, maybe 6, 5.5 players. So 2 of the players are linked with the Grove of the Guardian, which is up in the Elden Reach, and this is this is specifically a very powerful. What's the best way to describe this? They're allied. They are allied to nature, right? And then 2 of the players are allied specifically to House Thrash and House Kundarak, right? And those houses are very power based, money based, plotting and scheming, the exact opposite of the Elden Reach's Grove of the Guardian. The Towering Woods, the Wardens of the Woods, they could not be more different, right? And so 2 players on allied with nature, 2 players allied with houses, and it quite literally came to the point where I had to warn the characters literally. Normally you have to worry that the non-player characters and the monsters that I'm going to put on the board will take your player character's life. Tonight, look across, look right, look left. One of those players may take your life because the story has narratively arrived at a place where you could die, right? All players accepted that risk and we proceeded forward. And what ended up happening was that the house players just really got outplayed at every turn. And there was more cohesion between the players who, ironically, were in harmony with nature. They were allied and they just had a stronger stand. And the house players, specifically the player character Sovereign, who his position in the house was actually revoked, right? So he was a house noble, now he's a house agent, and it got even worse when he did not do what he was commanded to do, because houses have very strong hierarchies, whereas the Grove of the Guardian actually, accepts everyone and, very kumbaya and, non-hierarchical leadership. Everybody's ideas are valid, much different structure. He ended up going into prison, right, which is pretty wild. So he ended up in prison, right? And which is pretty bad, and so this player character, I could not believe this, but the player became emotional at the table, right? And said, and when I'm dungeon master, I'm in the zone, man. I'm just running it, right? And so I was, so the player's like, just wait till Monday. And I was like, wait, what? Right? And I kind of caught it, and then he kind of eyeballs the players, the player of Sovereign eyeballs the 2 Grove of the Guardian players, and and it's not a friendly eyeball, right? And I was like, what did I hear? It sounded like he said, wait until Monday. And I just put it out of my mind, and I only realized it when I was driving home, and I was like, oh no. Like, when I realized what was happening, I could not believe it, right? So what happened was the players, absolutely fascinating. So, I've been connected to this new group of players, and the dynamics are very different than what I'm used to. Delightful in some ways and terrifying in other ways. And what happened was, so basically, this group of players, I have 2 players who are playing in my game on Thursday nights and playing in the player who plays the player character Sovereign's player. They play in his game on Monday nights. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to punish them, as a dungeon master in a different Dungeons and Dragons campaign for the actions that they took in my campaign. And their action was to leave him out in the cold, right? Like, literally, when this player character went into prison, well, first of all, they did not go back to get him, right? Like, they let him deal with the ramifications of his choices. And to be clear, multiple times, I put this, player in the proximity of, like, okay, you are actually heading in the same direction on many of your goals. And I just kept putting him in proximity, saying, hey, your relationships with your house are breaking. These are your player characters that are allied with, are you going to, and there's this issue, like, where, honestly, Dungeons & Dragons is an incredibly dangerous world. If you go off on your own, right, like, there's a good chance you're not going to win, right? Like, if there's 5 people at the table and you have some scheme and you're going to do it all by yourself and you don't need anybody else, the odds of that happening are slim to none, right? Because the player characters who are working in tandem and moving toward goals together are clearly going to win the day, right? Especially when you've reached a point where narratively there is dissonance, right? Literally reasons why player characters might kill other player characters, go to war for different factions. The Grove of the Guardian is going to war with the houses, right? Like that, that's what's happening, right? And so basically, I could not believe we reached a point where this player was going to punish other players in a different Dungeons and Dragons game, stated it flat out, right? Like, intimated that's what's going to happen, in a different Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I have never seen that. Now, what is my chosen action? Nothing. And the reason why is, that person is a dungeon master, and that is completely wrong dungeon mastering, in my humble opinion. But the reality is, I respect other dungeon masters, and every dungeon master has the right to DM wrong and DM right? And the reality is, that's his campaign, and I'm not a player in it, right? So it's not right for me to butt in there. And so these other players are almost certain to suffer very distinct, like very real consequences based on actions that players took in my campaign. Like, they're going to be facing punishment in another campaign. And I'm like, wow, I have never seen that. Truly, truly incredible. Have you seen this before? I have never seen, like, ramifications fall on players in one campaign for what they did in another campaign. That is truly incredible. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. Well, that's a field report, right? And my humble opinion is that I should not take action. I should not speak to that dungeon master, because the reality is that's his table, and I think it's disrespectful to get up in his business. Like, he's been doing this a while. He's not new. His campaign's been running for a couple of years at least, right? And so, truly astounding. What would you do in this situation? Have you seen this done before? Have you been on the other end of this, where actions you took in one campaign actually came back to bite you in another campaign? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.